can there be Queen without Freddie Mercury? That's what many detractors ask when Paul Rogers toured with them, when Adam Lambert toured with them, when any number of guests performed with Brian Rogers over the years. But here's a song from 1975's The Night at the Opera. Just that, Queen without Freddie Mercury. It's good company. Next on Crown Jewels, presented by PLD Projects. Welcome to PLD Projects Crown Jewels. I am your host, PLD, and this is the podcast where I take you through every single song in the Queen catalog, including solo tracks. We listen to every version of the song and figure out which is the crown jewel, the best version of the song to put into our ultimate playlist. And also, we go into the history of the song, notes, quotes. We'll see if the song slides into my top 10 Queen songs of all time. Maybe it does slide to your top 10 Queen songs of all time. Try to be interactive. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. If this is your first time here, click that like, click that subscribe. Help the channel out. We try to give you as much content as we possibly can. And this week's song is a very interesting one. A song called Good Company, not Bad Company. Not related to Paul Rogers' song that, Paul Rogers eventually joined up and toured with Queen. That's a totally different story. This is a Good Company. Good Company, as written by Brian May, featuring Brian May on lead and backing vocals, guitars, a ukulele banjo, guitar jazz band. We'll get to that in a minute. John Deacon on bass guitar and Roger Taylor on drums. That's right. No Freddie Mercury, like I said on top. This is a Freddie Mercury-less Queen song. Now, unlike last week's episode, which had a million different live versions, etc., it's a long, hour-long episode. This is going to be a much shorter episode because we simply don't have as much to listen to. We have the studio version for Night at the Opera. We have no alternate studio versions. We have very little live versions. In fact, the band never played it live. Brian May broke it out in 2012 when he toured with Terry Ellis doing some acoustic tours, just him and the ukulele banjo. Nothing was officially released on it, but we do have some audience bootlegged copies we get to listen to, so I will consider them for crown jewels. But again, that's it. So let's get into it, and we're going to have a short episode this week. I'm okay with that. So how do we do this? If you look at the description below, you'll see links to YouTube versions of the version that we're going to listen to. What we will do, we will listen to them by pausing this podcast. You click on that link, you listen, you come back, and we'll talk about it. I'll direct you when to listen to what, and we'll go from there. So without further ado, let's listen to the studio version from A Night at the Opera. Good Company. Click that link below. Come back for more. We'll talk about it. On the surface, it's a short, simple song. Of course, the more you listen to it and you listen to that ending, you realize it's a lot more complex than it appears to be. It's a very vaudevillian 20s Queen song, 20s style Queen song. We've seen them do it before, definitely out of the frame of typical rock and roll, but not out of the framework for Queen. Brian does the basis of it on a ukulele banjo, which he grew up with his father. He used to play the ukulele banjo. He learned a lot on the ukulele banjo, so he likes bringing that in every once in a while, especially in the 70s. That's the basis for the song. And the first verse is Brian singing it, the banjo's playing, and John's bass is really delectable. It's not, again, not your typical bass. It's very much a wandering bass, but it adds such nice little texture to it. I think it kind of gets lost a little bit as the song goes on because, like most Queen songs, as the song goes on, it kind of builds and builds and adds more parts. And some of those individual parts can sometimes get a little buried. But if you listen to that first verse, John's bass is really a nice listen. The second verse does get fuller. Brian adding his harmony vocals, some nice lower harmonies, including some almost like some very different harmonies. I feel like it's not your typical harmonies, some little off-kilter harmonies, which I like. Roger starts drumming. And here we have a great lyrical moment from Brian here. If you listen to it, it's mostly, typical lyrics, nothing spectacular about the lyrics and nothing to write home about, but they fit the song very well. But interestingly enough, they do this, he does this fake tease out. Soon I grew and happy too, my very good friends with me. We'd play all day with Sally J, the girl from number, feels like you want to say 3. But no, it's soon I grew and happy too, my very good friends and me. We'd play all day with Sally J, the girl from number 4. I like it. I like the tease out. I'm not going to lie. It's kind of fun. It's kind of silly. That teased me out for a long time until I listened to it a million times. Now I'm used to it. But if you're not used to it, it kind of can throw you for a loop. Now, after that, the guitar jazz band starts during like the chorus, the ooh, moments. And the bridge section starts with some great panning electric guitar. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'll say it a million times. Listening to Queen is always best done wearing headphones. You can do it drive. You can do it with your big speakers. I love that. But sitting down with a pair of headphones, you're going to get that feel of what Queen's doing, that journey that they're taking you on. It goes all the way through on both sides, panning, different middle, left, right. It's great to hear. Takes you on a real journey. So after my own limited company, we get a bit of this solo ukulele banjo before we get into this freeform droning guitar and vocal line. There's kind of this basis, this keyboard-ish sounding basis. I know it's not synths. Queen was famous for saying no synths, no synthesizers were used in this album up until 1980s at the game. They always wanted to make sure that it was known that they didn't cheat, and Brian was making all these guitar noises up and all these sounds up himself for the most part, as well as the rest of the band. But it's just very, it does sound very synthy at this point, which is kind of cool for what it's going for. Of course, at the end it appears there's never really anyone but me. We go into one more little verse with the bouncy ukulele banjo, but then at the end of that line, this is where it's at. This is the whole point of the song, a fantastic ending bit, which is all Brian, and it makes it sound like a real 20 jazz band. This whole big, full sounding jazz band, which is all Brian on guitar. He just kept adding parts and parts to it before it got bigger and bigger and bigger before ending. But really, like, this is why they had to put no sense on it. You would think that they created this with synthesizer, or that they even had a band in there with them, but no, it was all Brian. And to point out specifically, I'll leave you the quote from the master himself. It's a little bit of a long quote, but this was Brian May talking about Good Company. He said, "It's all guitar, all those instruments. That was a little fetish of mine. I used to listen to traditional jazz quite a lot, in particular the 20s revival stuff, which wasn't actually traditional jazz, more arranged stuff like the Temperance Seven, who were recreating something which was popular in the 20s, sort of dance tunes, really. I was very impressed by the way those arrangements were done. There's nice, smooth sound and those lovely changes between chords, because they were much more rich in chords than most modern songs are. So many chord changes in a short time, lots of intermingling parts. So I wanted to do one of those things, and the song just happened to come out while I was plunking away at my ukulele. The song itself was no trouble to write at all, but actually doing the arrangements for the wind section as it was supposed to be, there's a guitar and a guitar clarinet and a guitar trombone and a sort of extra thing I don't really know what it was supposed to be on the top. I spent a lot of time doing those, and to get the effect of those instruments, I was doing one note at a time with a pedal and building them up so you can imagine how long it took. We experimented with the mics and various tiny little amplifiers to get just the right sound. So I actually made a study of the kind of thing that those instruments could play, so it would sound like those and get the authentic flavor. It was a bit of fun, but it was a serious bit of work, and that a lot of time went into it. Now, when Freddie Mercury was asked about this, he was a lot more succinct. It's a George Formby track with saxophones, trombones, and clarinet sounds from Brian's guitar. We don't believe in having any session men. We do everything ourselves, from high falsetto to the low bassy farts. It's all us. It really does blow your mind if you sit down, listen to it, and think about what's going on. You can actually not, if you're just listening to it, might just go through you and you might not even notice it. When you think about the effort that Brian made to make this work, it really is mind blowing. All right, let's move on to the other version we have. It's a live version performed in Portsmouth, 2012. Brian and Carrie Ellis on their Born Free tour, which was recorded for acoustic by Candlelight. But this song was not released officially by Brian and Carrie. This was just on YouTube somewhere. So we'll take a listen to it. And obviously, this recording is not going to be the greatest, but let's listen to it and see what we think. The link is below. Come back for more.
Take good care of what you've got, my father said to me.
There you go, Brian, giving you a nice introduction to the song and the ukulele on his first live performance. At least I believe it's the first live performance, as far as I know. Now, there's no guitar jazz band, there's no bass, no drums, no harmony vocals. It's just Brian and the ukulele. So it's a very loose and playful version. Fans start singing it. Brian laughs at that. Of course, he keeps going. He's not laughing much longer. Jokingly, of course. He performed it well, of course, until the middle section where he totally fucks it up. He just can't get it right on the banjo. Tries it like twice, and he's like, "Yeah, you know what? Fuck it, we'll move on." Which is very funny, because it actually leads me to believe that this was very spur of the moment from Brian. Brian's not known for being extremely spontaneous. The band in general, Queen, is not a very spontaneous band. It's kind of what you trade in spontaneity for the big theatrical production that Queen gives. I mean, it's like, that's what you get when you get the big like explosions and video screens and lights and everything else. That kind of has to be planned out to a T, so it doesn't leave a whole lot of room for spontaneity. So it's interesting to see that. I kind of wish we would get a little more spontaneity from Brian. A couple times, especially during the Queen and Adam Lambert gigs, as we'll get to those a little bit later on. Brian would come out for Love of My Life, and sometimes he would just perform a song before, randomly out of nowhere, a little snippet of something. I kind of wish he would do that more. He did it a few times during the earlier years. It's kind of a nice thing to kind of get to play an unknown track or a really deep cut track, even just a snippet of it for the deep cut for the fans, so to speak. But it's a fun version. It's loose, it's playful. I was glad to see him do it. I'm happy I got to see at least the YouTube version of it. It's not the greatest performance. Well, that's it. There's only two ones to listen to. So now we get into which is the crown jewel, which version of the crown jewel. Well, I'm not going to try to build up any suspense. This is an easy one. The loose and playful version with Brian and a guitar who fucks up, or the fully crafted masterpiece of Brian painstakingly recreating a jazz band from the 20s. This is the album version by far. Now, as far as rating it goes and whether it slides into my top 10, I'm going to give this track, well, it's kind of hard, I got to be honest with you, because there's reasons why I would give it higher and lower. To be completely honest, this is not a song I jump back to. I love when Queen does these 20s vaudeville type things, these totally out of the realm of rock and roll kind of things, because that's one of my favorite things about the band, the ability to do almost any kind of genre, to take a left when everybody's going right, to go dig down underneath to create a new path underneath the ground rather than go straight forward. I love these different eccentricities. At the same time, not everyone is one that I'm going to jump to and say, oh, I got to listen to it a lot of times. So in the path of the album, I love listening to it. I am completely stunned and amazed by Brian's hard work and persistence and his arrangement and creating that jazz band. That's musically phenomenal. So it's like that gives it extra bonus points. But is it a song to listen to? So that's where I gotta kind of rate it as if it's the song I like or not. So I want to give this a 7.5. It's probably honestly closer to a 6 as far as it goes. I'd rather listen to so many other Queen songs I'd rather listen to, but I get that ending and I hear that ending and I'm like, wow, I can't not give it a couple of extra bonus points for that. It's so well done. And it shows how genius Brian really is. It's a great determination of what the band can do, and Brian May can do specifically. But overall, the song, I'm going to give it a simple 7.5, and that's not put it into my top 10. So there we have it. And there you have it, folks, for this week's episode of Crown and Jewels. Next week, well, it's the big one. It is the one you've all been waiting for. Even those of you who are not Queen fans know this one and probably are interested in seeing which one I see is the crown jewel of a little number called Bohemian Rhapsody. That's right, Bohemian Rhapsody next week. That's next week, so not this week. Stay tuned, as they say. Same PLD time, same PLD channel. If you want to, speaking of the channel, if you want to support the channel, patreon.com/PLD Projects. Joining folks is Austin Goodell, Jeremiah Morris, Matthew Kearns, Brandon Buckingham, Jeff Alterman, Kelly W., and more. I really couldn't do this without you guys. And if you can't join Patreon, I completely understand. Just like the video, subscribe, share it. Let's build the community up any way we can. That's how you can help. That's how you can help PLD Projects out as well. Many different ways to do so. Love all you guys. I love this community I do have. And I can't wait to get into more with you guys, whether it's on PLD Projects Crown Jewels or on PLD Projects, where we do Two Mediocre White Dudes on Film. We do Holy Snokes, a Star Wars podcast, review a Veed podcast. Currently, we're doing the Mission Impossible, Declassified. We're doing a bunch of other stuff on there, some trailer reactions as they come forth. A lot of cool stuff going on there. So take a look and maybe you'll find something you'd like to watch about TV or movies on that channel. And if you're listening to the audio, it's all here anyway in the same audio feed. So you don't have to go very far. But that's next week. That's not this week. That's then. This is now. Keep yourself alive, everybody. Stay tuned next week, and I'll be back for more. God save the Queen. Bye.